Welcome, everyone. I'm Haley Hansen. I'm the leader of Husch Blackwell's higher education team here in Kansas City. Before we begin, I'd like to cover a few housekeeping items. At the bottom of your audience console, there are multiple applications for your use during the program today. If you have any questions during the webinar, please submit them via the question box. We'll try to answer any questions you have. If we do need a fuller response, we'll be happy to send you an email and follow up as well. Also, there is a PDF of the presentation that is available in the program folder, so you're welcome to download that. And then finally, a certificate of attendance will be emailed to you tomorrow, along with the recording of the webinar in case there's anyone on your campuses that was not able to attend but would like to hear the webinar as well. At the end of the webinar, we'll have a short survey to get your feedback for future programs, and that's it for the housekeeping items. So I'm so pleased to introduce Dr. Chuck Ambrose, who's joining me today. He has 40 years of experience in college presidents' offices, including 23 years of serving as president himself. Chuck joined the firm over a year ago now, so that's an exciting thing to be able to say. And he supports our higher education institutions and supports leaders really focused on student-centered supports, helping them access and utilize new tools, build sustainable futures for higher ed. And so we're very lucky to have Chuck. He works at Husch Blackwell Consulting, and we'll tell you a little bit about that as well. So, all right, with that, we're going to go ahead and get started, and we're going to ask you a poll question to start today. So how confident are you about the future of higher education industry itself? So very optimistic, somewhat optimistic, neutral, somewhat concerned, or very concerned. So if you'd go ahead and respond to the poll question, that would be great. Okay, I'm not seeing anybody respond so far.
Oh, there they go.
There we go. Okay.
Just took a little bit.
Thought we were having a few technical issues to start. There we go. All right. Well, once we get to about 50% of you responding, which is about now, I'll show you the results. All right, so, well, good. We have some optimistic and some concerned. So 40% in both of those categories about higher ed. I do think, as we talk about higher ed, there's really a change in the headwinds, and there's a lot coming towards the higher education industry as a whole, including a lot of concern with students and students' confidence in higher ed. And so Chuck, why don't you take us through some of the challenges?
Yeah, and I appreciate especially getting your feedback. And given the fact that we're a couple weeks into the semester, school has started, I think not only is it hopeful but realistic to be optimistic. Certainly, as you look at these declining higher ed trends, and I think many of you are asked on a rather frequent basis, what's your sense of where the value prop is and how higher ed is doing. And of course, if we read the Chronicle, if we read the daily briefings, if we read Inside Higher Ed or Higher Ed Dive, every week, right, you get the sense of challenges and perhaps, the hill to climb. But at the same time, higher education is a very resilient enterprise. We have shown the ability to change, and many of those changes are happening rather rapidly. So as we think, especially about a student-centric model of helping more of our students succeed, making higher education more presentable to those that need it the most and where the promise really makes a difference, there's reason to have hope, and that's one of the reasons that Campus Compass becomes such a valuable tool, because building resiliency and building performance is the objectives that we hope to work with you to accomplish. So as you think not only about higher education, our second poll question is more specific to your the institution where you're serving. So if we ask that same question, how confident are you about the future of your institution, we'll give you just a couple minutes to respond.
I always feel like we need Jeopardy music during this or
A
something.
little music would help, and a little nudge. 2 polls within a couple minutes is always a lot to ask.
Yeah, that's true.
But thank you, and we're getting there. We'll give you just a couple more minutes. We're moving towards that 50%. Yeah, and let's see how, as a group, you've responded.
Good.
Yeah, so when you come back to your home institution, the levels of optimism even go up. And that really brings us to thinking about navigation and creating that roadmap for the future.
All right, so the question becomes then, why did we create what we call Campus Compass? So Campus Compass was really it was kind of my idea to try to get Chuck and others to come together, and we would create a tool that would be helpful for institutions to be able to understand, where have we been, what is our trajectory, and where are we going to go? And so how do we make sure that not only does our administrative team understand we're all on the same page, because we look at our numbers, we look at audited financials, but sometimes it doesn't give us this bigger picture of what is our sustainability as an institution, and what are areas in which, even as an institution, we can improve, and what are things that our competitors are doing that we might need to look at and might want to focus on. And so that's really how Campus Compass was created, was trying to figure out, how do we bring this tool together to really be helpful in a way that is not cost prohibited. A lot of times I had seen some of my clients that had gone out for RFPs or even contacted other groups, and they were getting quotes that were hundreds of thousands of dollars to do some of this work for their institution, which is really valuable and important work. It just wasn't at a cost structure that they could really afford. And so we were looking at a way to make sure that it has some, it has a lot of assistance to the school, but at a cost that makes sense for the institution as well. And so that's really what we focused on. So when you break down Campus Compass, what it really focuses on is 4 elements. And the first is, of course, financial health. And so we're looking at really the differences between the balance sheet, the operating performance. We're really trying to illuminate elements in your financial integrity to show where are areas that you could improve when you look at your entire sustainability of your campus. And that includes then enrollment, people and process, and student success, because all of those elements really factor in to how successful your institution is going to be. And if you just focus all of your attention on the finances, sometimes it's difficult to come up with the roadmap to the solutions. If we only focus on the finances, we don't really know how we're going to change and move forward. The other elements really provide that roadmap of where do we need to make these improvements, and actually where are we doing pretty well that maybe we want to add more resources to and really bolster those areas because we're doing really well in those areas. So when we talk about enrollment, of course, we're looking at not only the number of students enrolled, but how long they're enrolled and what their time to graduation is, and how that really matriculates through our campus in terms of people and process, and then our student success models, and what does that look like as well. And so, our people and process are always going to be our biggest bottom line driver, right? It's going to be the costs associated with operating our school. And do we have the right number of people in the right areas? Is our ratios correct? Do we have a sustainable model of, of right sizing the institution, so to speak? And then finally, those success measures. And I think looking at all 4 together give you a complete picture. And that's really what we were doing and when we created Campus Compass. And one of the major things that I found a lot of times too, as schools were going through this work, was that they were working with a consultant, which was great, but that consultant didn't have the legal expertise. And then if they would work with the legal expertise, they may not have had the real world being able to say from their experience running a school, they, look at it in a very legal lens, so to speak, which I know sometimes has its challenges as well. And so this kind of adds both of those together. So Chuck, why don't you walk through what the actual tool does?
Yeah, and I think, one of the questions you may have, and we would anticipate, why Husch Blackwell, as a law firm to develop not only this full set of data analytics, but also the consulting services, as Haley just said. As full disclosure, I'm a former client, and I realize the value of thought partnership with Husch Blackwell. But at the same time, I also realize the higher education team's commitment to helping institutions where they are. And so the competencies and talents that go deep within the legal services side, building out with the consulting side, brings together, a set of tools and resources. One of those tools and resources that we've fully utilized is the information technology and data science assets of a major law firm, which gives us the opportunity to build out a very significant database that includes all of your public-facing data, the cohort default rates, the clearinghouse navigator data, the IPEDS data, that really represents a reflection of what you present by virtue of your performance. Several people have asked us, well, can't we just go look at IPEDS and find this data? You can find some data, but you can't do the cross comparisons, the composite ratios, the multiple analysis over both your IPEDS peers as well as geographical peers that allows you to kind of see how you're doing. And that's really what I wanted to illuminate just over these next couple of slides. You get three forms of data. You get a current snapshot. How are we doing now? You get your peer comparative data that, again, can be brought to you both by geographical peers as well as your IPED peers. And then you have an opportunity, and again, this is where a database along with the analysis tools that gives it the opportunity to be compared over time. So composite, comparative, and trend data over time is brought together within that Power BI tool. We did have a question, and I think this would be something that we would all recognize. We're at no shortage of data. We've got a great opportunity to be paralyzed by data, and there is a time lag with IPEDS data. We know it has limitations. This is your diagnostic preventative health check. It gives us an opportunity to look at your trends. This database has been built with strategy embedded in it around those four elements, which makes it unique. It's not just a financial health metrics. It does look at enrollment productivity and student success. And then it's brought together with a tool that's meant to highlight how you're doing across all of those four elements. And this is really, again, just a snapshot of how that plays out. Haley mentioned, financial health and the other elements playing into it. We do start with your viability ratios. It wouldn't be surprising to think about where you are with your asset sheet, your ability to borrow. But much of the focus of Campus Compass is designed to really help you improve your operating margins, how you're doing within this year, how you can improve those metrics next year. And we do that in a way that is a great teaching tool to the campus to help them inform how a college actually works, how you generate your revenues, how you spend your resources, and how potentially you can reallocate those resources to increase your viability. On the enrollment productivity, there is some unique metrics within this. We do calculate a lifetime through value at the cohort level that gives you an opportunity to look not just at a traditional retention rate fall to fall, but really what your students are doing over that 8-year period. Are there other places of slippage like second, third, or fourth year? And then the opportunity cost of mobilizing the campus, that the more students that you remove risk from and they're able to persist to a degree, the financial benefit, the resource development that represents. On the student success metrics, this is really where the balance comes in of legal as well as performance. We have an opportunity. I know we just had some deferral about gainful employment and financial transparency, but Campus Compass does get you down to the program level to at least see how the debt burden is by program. And Haley, that may be something very specific because this was built really thinking from a regulatory compliance as well as performance.
Right. So when we were really looking at what metrics do we want to put into Campus Compass, that was one of the things that was really important was how do you predict? And again, the department has now said that there's a January 1st implementation date. But as you look at financial value add transparency, as you look at gainful employment, as you look at some of those other regulatory issues, this will be able to help you predict where you're going to fall and prepare you if you need to, if you need to look at particular programs of how do you respond to so you can be in front of it versus playing catch up when the department finally puts out that information.
And again, the value of that extends to the value proposition that you demonstrate to prospective students. It engages your alumni to think, well, I did benefit from the outcome of this degree. I need to give something back. Some great questions that are being asked, really specific to not only core expenses and core revenues, Raj, but also some of the elements of really focus about how to be more successful can be found in those student success metrics. How well do you do with your most at-risk students? What's the difference between your graduation rates for Pell eligible students up against the general student population? Obviously, the more risk you remove from more of your students and the longer they persist, the more resources you have to invest back into that experience. So it really is built, the tool is built on those key questions that every campus should be asking, but then together, and it's not just, again, a data analytics report, together to map out strategies and narrative to help you build performance forward. And again, as Haley mentioned, perhaps the most difficult, and I'll be very direct, something that we're seeing now as margins tighten, as some of our operating revenues are static or perhaps in decline, are you managing against your expenses to just make sure the operating integrity is maintained? If there is some disruption, you know that you need to react. But then again, with your optimism on the front end of the survey, if you're generating new revenue, where do you invest it? And how do you get a great return on that investment? And so looking at that over time, signifying basically where you're allocating those resources. And we know our most precious resources is our people. And that's one reason you need the best people driving the most important processes every day. And hopefully this is a way to encourage them that the work they do in enrollment, in student success, in administration, has a direct impact on how we're doing as an institution.
So, as we kind of talk about Campus Compass, I think a lot of people have asked us, how has it been used so far? And I think I break it down into really 3 different buckets of people that are using Campus Compass. So the first is really the institution that is wanting more data. Maybe they don't have an institutional research team that is working on things. And so they want additional data and they want to be able to present it to their board. And they're using it really for cost containment, for improvement strategies, for ways in which we can see, okay, where are these areas across these 4 different platforms that we can really focus on and drive change to make sure, are we increasing our enrollment, but our net tuition is down? And so obviously there's a disconnect. We're discounting at such a rate that even though our enrollment is up, we are not actually making more per student with a higher enrollment than we were with a lower enrollment. And so those types of things are really kind of drivers for change and seeing how that matriculates through the student success and what does that mean to you long term. And I think all of that is really important. So that's one group of people that are using it, really looking at it as a snapshot of where we are, how do we drive change, and really we can, if we work with an institution, put together additional tools to take their current data, because I know some people are saying, oh, this is 2 years old, is it really really does give you a trend of where you're going, which is very helpful. But they might want more current data, and we can do that as well. It's not within Campus Compass because we don't have access to it. You haven't uploaded it anywhere publicly. And so, we work directly with the clients on that piece of it. And so that's really one bucket. The second bucket of people that have used it are new presidents. And it has been very helpful going into a new campus to say, this is where this campus has been. This is where this institution has been. This is where we want to take it to, and have data as you walk in on day one. And then the third area is where people are really looking at particular programs and how do we drill down into those programs to make sure that we are planning and moving towards the future. We've actually had a few people too, I guess there'd be a fourth bucket, that are interested in mergers, and they actually would like to understand, where partnerships could be. And so using the data to say, who do we align with and where are our partnerships? And that can be another way to use Campus Compass as well. And so again, we really think it's for board, senior leadership team, and then using the data and information and tools within the data to present to the campus community itself. And I know that, at your last presidency, Chuck, you actually used a lot of data to present change to the campus, and that was extremely helpful in explaining why you were making some of the changes you had to make at that campus.
Yeah, and I think a lot of the leadership dynamic today is driven not necessarily, there's still art to leadership, but data-informed storytelling for a campus is so critical. One, to celebrate successes, but two, to identify opportunities. And then there's some continuum out there. I sometimes refer to EAB's continuum of moving from good stewardship all the way through a continuum of concern to crisis to even existential threat. Anywhere along that continuum, you need to be asking the right questions and know really the answers that every campus needs to know. The other element of this is just don't wait too long. When you think about implementing change, when you want to restructure and improve performance, of course, here we are in September. Let's just think about the challenges of this academic year. It's much easier to act today than it is in February. You have the opportunity and much more runway to implement strategies, measure the results, see what works, see what doesn't, and then move forward.
And I do think, you kind of talked about the headwinds of change, but the FAFSA, it was a huge impact on a lot of the institutions that we work with, the FAFSA issues, and it doesn't look like they've been resolved. There could still be some, there's hopefully a lot of improvement, but there still could be some different timelines as you're looking at this year as well, which could be a problem for some schools.
Which really underlines, right, one of our more systemic challenges, right, is that just students have a very difficult time justifying cost. Many students expect a degree of scholarship that many of us can't afford. And restating that, I think one of the most valuable aspects of a good diagnostic assessment, just like when we run our lipid panels annually to see how we're doing, it's a great teaching tool. Just to teach each other how better to serve students.
Mm-hmm. So there's been some questions about, okay, what do you actually get, in working with Campus Compass? First of all, this was just an introduction to kind of let you know what we're doing. If you're interested in using Campus Compass, we would set up, Chuck would set up a half-hour to hour-long discussion just of what your needs are. You also would, if you decide to move forward with Campus Compass, would get a public-facing institutional data report that would provide analysis and really look at not only what did these trends show, but what are some changes, what are some strategies moving forward, especially that would align with the needs that you identified when we started the process as well. And then also consulting help to how do we implement this at our institution, and that consulting help, I think, think is really important, because it's, great to have data, but if you have data and don't have a plan with what you're going to do with the data and how you're going to make meaningful change at your institution, it falls flat. It's not really worth the expense that you've put forth to go through this. You really have to have a plan that comes from that data. Do you want to talk a little bit more about the clients we've worked with and those plans?
Yeah, and I think Haley set that up very well, is that this is a really highly personalized process. And the most important question is what are you intending to use the data for? How best can we construct the process of not only your public-facing data, but thinking very strategically with you, right, about what your data means. We'll also be very objective with you and craft those responses in ways that can best serve your institution to help them move forward. And so in that preliminary stage of engagement, to be as customized and as personalized to your needs, we'll look at all of your other public-facing information just to strengthen our analysis. And then we've got a great team in the data analysis side of the equation to give you a really personalized report that's individualized to your needs.
So next steps, again, if anyone is interested, we'd be happy to connect with you. I know Chuck would be happy to talk to you about Campus Compass and go a little bit more in depth. Chuck, are there any questions that came in that we want to answer that we didn't get
There's
to?
quite a few good questions that we probably, I can try to respond to you individually. Endowment is included and some endowment distributions, including kind of a monitoring of current year spend, which is important, because if you're having to increase your spend rate and eating into your endowment, that hard balance, right, is using some of your savings to fund your bills. And that's always hard. You can use this QR code. You can email me directly. We can respond with demonstrations specifically to your leadership team or any other group on campus that you may want to explore utilization. And then again, that next step would be to really seek what you want to get most out of as a deliverable. Again, Husch Blackwell has really made a dedicated effort to make these tools and resources accessible to the campuses that need them most. And that's what we want to do together.
All right. Well, I think we've answered most of the questions, hopefully. So we really appreciate your attendance here today at the webinar. We hope the information was helpful. As a reminder, you will be receiving a certificate of attendance along with the recording, and be sure to complete the short survey. We really thank you for your time today. Have a great afternoon.
Thanks for joining us.